Mark Strolle. I've been a member of UAW Local 602 for nearly 40 years now, and it's a pleasure to do this interview.
Thank you, Mark. What do you see as the importance of CONCON?
Well, the Constitutional Convention is the highest tribune of the UAW, but it's a lot more than that, actually. It's a chance for everybody to get together and debate issues of the day, and any delegate can take the microphone and state their point of views in front of their peers. And it's also a chance for us to take a lot of positions on important issues of the day, both social, political, and economic.
So what do you see as the biggest threat to unions today, and what can we do about it?
Well, I think the biggest threat to unions today is the lack of reform of our labor relations law in the United States. The law was written and passed in 1936 when the employment situation was a lot different in the United States. There were mass production industries that hired thousands of people in big factories, and the law was written primarily for those sort of situations. Today, the number of people who work in a large factory has diminished greatly. A large factory used to be defined by more than 10,000 people, and back in the day, in the 1930s, the Rouge plant had more than 100,000 people. And so things have changed significantly, and the law has only been amended twice, and it's a thing that has really put us in labor unions at a disadvantage, because the bar for organizing a union and getting a first contract, I feel, is too high. And that's what needs to change. We need help from the folks in Washington, D.C. And right now, I'd have to say that it's not forthcoming, obviously, with the President and the House of Representatives and the Senate all dominated by the Republicans. And unless we can get the labor law changed, in my mind, we're going to struggle mightily to increase our numbers. And as long as the labor movement, as long as the number of people who are in a union is small, and it's very small in the United States, only around 7 or 8% of the private sector, for example, then we're going to see this disparity of income. The disparity of income reduces the size of the middle class, and it really tugs at us politically. So in order for us to really, I think, improve our democracy, we need to have stronger unions that can then better distribute the income that's produced by our economy and kind of calm down our politics, and we can focus on doing things that will help our society be more competitive in what is essentially a global economy today, fundamentally different from global economies in the past.
What do you think are the biggest internal issues coming into the next contract?
Well, certainly there's the two-tier issue. That's a big issue. And that issue is not going to be easily resolved. Essentially, another issue I think that's going to pop up is people are realizing that we've created a deal with the devil, and not us per se, but the companies are not going to build cars in the United States anymore. Not like they did in the past. They're going to build strictly crossovers, SUVs, and trucks. And the thing that puts us at risk then is if the price of gas somehow spikes, we'll see massive layoffs. And those vehicles are not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. If they start importing all the cars from places like Mexico or China, then we're also at a big cost disadvantage, because the wages and working conditions there are not very good, frankly, and that's not anything that we can compete with fairly. So that's going to be another issue that's going to come forth, is going to be the future of the auto industry, and we're right on the cusp of change right now.
Where do you see the UAW in 5 years if you could have a crystal ball?
If I had a crystal ball? I think the UAW will continue down this path. I mean, it has changed drastically. Only 60% right now of the UAW is in manufacturing. 40% is in other fields. And I think that this ratio is going to change probably to where it's more like 50-50, because the organizing gains are being made in places like academia, and professional workers. And I see that continuing, frankly, because the universities in the United States have a lot of money and they don't treat their faculty or staff very well. And there's lots more folks who could be organized, and as we make more organizing gains, if we have gains in those contracts, people will join our union and we'll shift the power, because at the same time manufacturing is going to change also with a lot fewer people because of the new generation of robots, apps, and 3D printing are all going to have an impact. Plus the other thing that's going to be big is driverless vehicles. I have a feeling that a lot of the material handling is going to have a lot less people, both from the supplier point to when it's inside the factories. So that's another change that will cause this ratio to change inside the UAW and could fundamentally change our union.
Okay. Some words of wisdom from somebody that's, because you've been around and you've been involved in a long time, so.
Well, I think there are two things that I would say. The first thing I would say is it's time, it's way past time that we up our game with technology, and that we've really got to look hard at making sure that we have everybody's email address for a starter, and because that could facilitate a lot of things about changing the way we do business. There are a number of people who've made tried to bring up the issue of one member, one vote. That could only be facilitated as if we were a organization that was up to date, electronically speaking. And I think we're a ways away from that now. And that's one of the things we need to improve. The second thing I'd say, and this is something you hear at union meetings every election cycle, is the next election is the most important election ever. Well, this year I think that's true. In the past, I don't think it has been as true. But with what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now, if we do not defeat Donald Trump at the polls this November, he will consolidate his power. He'll appoint tons of conservative judges that will fundamentally change the judiciary over the next 20 years. And there's no telling what that will mean in terms of the labor law. And it'll make it very difficult for us in the labor movement. So I'd say if we have to win this fall coming, so that'd be kind of the short-term thing I would leave you with.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark Strolle. I appreciate you doing the interview, and I appreciate your time.
Oh, I appreciate it, Doug. Thanks so much.